What if the largest predator in Earth's oceans wasn't unstoppable, but unstable? What if Megalodon's size wasn't its greatest strength, but the very reason it couldn't survive? For decades, Megalodon has been imagined as the ultimate ocean nightmare, a gigantic, perfect killing machine ruling ancient seas without challenge. But that image hides a strange biological paradox, because in nature, being bigger doesn't always mean being better. Sometimes it means being dangerously dependent. Imagine a supercar that can reach incredible speeds, but burns fuel so fast it can't afford to stop. That was Megalodon, a massive, energy-hungry predator built for a very specific world: warm waters, abundant prey, and stable ecosystems. The moment that world began to shift, everything about its design turned against it. So instead of asking how powerful Megalodon was, we should be asking something far more interesting. Why was it so vulnerable? We love the idea of a perfect predator, something flawless, efficient, unstoppable. And for a long time, that's exactly how Megalodon has been portrayed: a gigantic, upgraded version of a great white shark, sitting at the top of the food chain like the final boss of the ocean. But here's the problem. Evolution doesn't build perfection, it builds trade-offs. And Megalodon? It was a walking, swimming bundle of trade-offs. At first glance, everything about it screams dominance. Massive jaws, serrated teeth designed to slice through bone, a body built to take down whales. But when scientists started looking closer, really closer, a different picture began to emerge. Megalodon wasn't a generalist hunter that could adapt to anything. It was highly specialized. Think of it like a luxury tool designed to do one job incredibly well, and almost nothing else. Its size limited where it could go. Shallow, warm waters were its comfort zone. Its metabolism likely demanded a constant supply of large, calorie-rich prey. Not fish, not small animals, big targets. Whales. And not just any whales, specific types that lived in environments Megalodon could access. That's not flexibility, that's dependency. And here's where the illusion of perfect predator starts to crack. Because in nature, the most successful hunters aren't always the biggest or strongest. They're the ones that can switch strategies when things change. Wolves can hunt alone or in packs. Orcas adapt their techniques depending on prey. Even modern sharks adjust their diet based on availability. Megalodon didn't have that luxury. It was built for a very specific version of the ocean, a version that, for millions of years, worked perfectly in its favor, until it didn't. And when that environment began to shift, when prey patterns changed, when oceans cooled, when ecosystems reorganized, Megalodon couldn't just pivot. It couldn't suddenly become smaller, faster, or more versatile. It was locked into its own design. So the real lesson here isn't that Megalodon wasn't powerful. It absolutely was. It's that power without flexibility is fragile. And sometimes the creatures that look the most unstoppable are the ones closest to breaking. We tend to equate size with power. Bigger jaws, bigger body, bigger bite. Therefore, a better predator. It's a simple idea, almost comforting. But biology doesn't really care about what feels intuitive to us. Because in the natural world, getting bigger doesn't just increase your strength, it multiplies your problems. Take Megalodon. At its peak, this animal may have needed around 100,000 calories a day just to keep its body running. Not to grow, not to reproduce, just to exist. That's like fueling a high-performance jet that never gets to land. Now imagine missing a meal. For a smaller predator, that's inconvenient. For Megalodon, that's a serious problem. Every failed hunt wasn't just a missed opportunity, it was a direct hit to its survival. Energy out, nothing in. And when your body burns through fuel at that scale, you don't get many second chances. This is where things start to flip. Because suddenly, size isn't just an advantage, it's a liability. Picture two hunters in the same ocean. One is smaller, faster, able to chase different types of prey, switch tactics, explore new areas. The other is enormous, powerful, but built for one kind of target, one kind of hunt, one kind of success. Which one survives when the rules change? Megalodon's entire strategy depended on landing high-reward kills, large prey, massive energy payoff. But those hunts are risky. Big prey fights back. It escapes. It migrates. And when it does, the cost isn't equal. It's devastating. It's like betting your entire paycheck on a single hand of cards, every single day. Win, and you're fine. Lose, and things spiral fast. And here's the uncomfortable truth. The bigger you are, the less room you have for error. You can't afford inefficiency. You can't afford bad luck. You can't afford change. Megalodon wasn't more powerful because it was big. It was more exposed. So the real lesson isn't that size doesn't matter. It does. But beyond a certain point, size stops being a weapon and starts becoming a risk. And in a world that never stops changing, being high risk is a dangerous way to exist. When we picture Megalodon, we imagine it ruling the entire ocean, every depth, every coastline, every shadow beneath the waves, like it had the keys to the whole planet. But in reality, Megalodon wasn't an all-access predator. It had a preferred setting, and it stuck to it. Warm water, shallow seas, coastal zones rich with medium-sized whales. That was its comfort zone, the biological equivalent of a 5-star resort with an all-you-can-eat buffet. Everything about its body worked best there. Its size, its energy needs, even its hunting style. Step outside that environment and things get complicated. Cold water? That's a problem if your metabolism is tuned for warmth. Deep ocean? Harder to navigate, harder to hunt, fewer predictable targets. Scattered prey? Now you're burning energy just trying to find your next meal. So Megalodon didn't roam everywhere. It stayed where the conditions were just right. And for millions of years, that worked beautifully. Until the ocean changed. Not overnight, not with a dramatic explosion, just slow, relentless shifts. Global temperatures dropped. Warm, shallow seas began to shrink. Coastlines moved. Ecosystems reorganized. And then the whales, Megalodon's main food source, did something unexpected. They changed the rules. Instead of staying in those same coastal feeding grounds, many began moving into deeper, colder waters. Others evolved into filter feeders, targeting massive swarms of tiny organisms instead of behaving like the mid-sized, predictable prey Megalodon relied on. In other words, the buffet packed up and left. Now here's the contrast. Early relatives of the great white shark didn't panic. They adapted. They moved into colder regions. They followed different prey. They became faster, more flexible, more opportunistic. Megalodon couldn't. It wasn't built for that kind of shift. It couldn't suddenly shrink, speed up, or reinvent its hunting strategy. It was optimized, perfectly, for a version of the ocean that no longer existed. And that's the turning point. Because when your entire survival depends on one specific environment, you're not ruling the ocean. You're renting a very small part of it. So the lesson here is simple and a little brutal. Megalodon didn't disappear because it was weak. It disappeared because it was stuck. And in a world that keeps changing, being stuck is the most dangerous place you can be. On paper, Megalodon's hunting style sounds terrifyingly efficient. Charge in, bite hard, end it quickly. No chase scenes, no drawn-out struggle, just raw force, like a living guillotine. Fossil evidence even supports this. Bite marks on ancient whale bones show deep fractures across the ribcage, suggesting Megalodon didn't nibble or test its prey. It went straight for a disabling strike. Break the body, collapse the lungs, end the fight fast. It's brutal, it's direct, it's effective. But here's the catch. This strategy only works when everything goes right. Because every attack like that comes with a massive energy bill. You're accelerating a multi-ton body, committing fully to impact, and putting enormous stress on your muscles and structure. It's not a casual bite, it's a full investment. And if the prey escapes, you don't just lose a meal, you lose energy you can't easily replace. Now imagine that happening more than once. As oceans changed, prey became less predictable. Whales migrated farther. Some grew larger. Others became harder to pin down. That perfect one-hit scenario? It started to disappear. Meanwhile, other predators were playing a different game. Instead of betting everything on one decisive strike, they adapted. They chased smaller prey. They hunted in bursts. They switched tactics depending on the situation. Less dramatic, but far more reliable. Megalodon didn't do backup plans. It was built for impact, not endurance. Precision, not flexibility. So when conditions shifted, its greatest strength, this overwhelming high-force attack, became a liability. Too costly, too risky, too dependent on perfect timing. It's like bringing a sledgehammer to every problem, and then living in a world that suddenly requires finesse. The lesson here is surprisingly simple. A strategy that works perfectly in one environment can fail completely in another. And when your entire survival depends on getting it right the first time, eventually, you won't. It's tempting to imagine the ending like a movie, a colossal showdown. Megalodon versus great white, teeth against teeth. One wins, one disappears. Clean, dramatic, completely wrong. There's no evidence of a final battle, no fossil record of some epic rivalry where one predator defeated the other. Because that's not how this story ends. Megalodon didn't lose a fight, it lost its world. While it was busy doing what it had always done, patrolling warm coastal waters, hunting large prey, the ocean was quietly rewriting the rules. And other species started reading the new script faster. Early great white sharks didn't challenge Megalodon head-on. That would have been suicide. Instead, they did something much smarter. They moved sideways. They explored colder waters. They chased different prey. They adapted to environments Megalodon never really entered. At the same time, whales, the main energy source for Megalodon, were undergoing their own transformation. Some species grew larger, eventually too big to handle efficiently. Others shifted to filter feeding, spreading out across vast, deeper regions of the ocean.
In simple terms, the menu changed. And Megalodon? It didn't. So while smaller, more flexible predators found new opportunities, Megalodon found fewer and fewer. Not because it was weaker, not because it was outmatched, but because it was outpaced. This is what makes the story almost uncomfortable. There was no dramatic defeat, no final moment of collapse, just a slow narrowing of options, until there were none left. It's like showing up to the same job every day, doing it perfectly, while the entire industry quietly disappears around you. So the lesson here is subtle, but powerful. In evolution, you don't have to be beaten to lose. Sometimes, all it takes is being left behind. When people hear that Megalodon went extinct, the first instinct is to ask, what killed it? Was it climate change? Competition? A sudden collapse? But that question assumes something important, that extinction is always caused by a single dramatic event. In Megalodon's case, it wasn't. Because the most surprising part of this story is this. Megalodon didn't die because it was weak. It died because it was too dependent on everything around it staying the same. Think about how its entire existence was structured. Its size demanded enormous energy. Its diet depended on large, calorie-rich prey. Its hunting style required predictable environments. Its physiology favored warm, shallow waters. Individually, none of these are flaws. In fact, they worked incredibly well for millions of years.
But together, they formed a system with almost no flexibility. It's like building a house of cards where every piece supports the others. As long as nothing moves, it stands beautifully. But the moment something shifts, even slightly, the whole structure becomes unstable. And then, the world started to move. Oceans cooled. Coastal ecosystems shrank. Whales evolved, some growing too large, others changing how and where they fed. One change might have been survivable. Two may be manageable. But all three? That's where things reached a tipping point. Now Megalodon wasn't just facing a tougher hunt, it was facing a completely different ocean. One where its size became inefficient, its prey became scarce or unreachable, and its environment became fragmented. There was no quick adaptation, no gradual adjustment, because evolution doesn't rewrite a creature overnight, and Megalodon didn't have the biological room to maneuver. So its extinction wasn't sudden, it was inevitable. A slow narrowing of possibilities until survival simply stopped being an option. And that leads to a lesson that goes far beyond ancient oceans. Being highly optimized can look like strength, but if that optimization locks you into one way of surviving, it can also become a trap. Megalodon wasn't defeated. It was outgrown by a world that no longer needed what it was built to be. Megalodon wasn't a failure of evolution. It was a masterpiece built for the wrong future. Everything about it worked, until the world stopped cooperating. Its size, its diet, its hunting style, all perfectly tuned to a stable ocean that no longer exists. And that's the twist. In nature, survival doesn't go to the strongest, or the biggest, or even the most efficient. It goes to the most adaptable. Megalodon didn't collapse overnight. It slowly ran out of options. And if that sounds familiar, it should. Because even today, systems that rely too heavily on one condition, one resource, one strategy, face the same quiet risk of becoming obsolete. So here's something to think about. If Megalodon existed today, could it survive in our modern oceans?
And what matters more in the long run? Being powerful or being adaptable? If this changed how you see Megalodon, hit like, subscribe, and share. Because sometimes, the biggest stories aren't about strength. They're about survival.